Welcome to my channel Alien Signal. The lecture hall was silent in the way only an advanced civilization could manage. Perfect acoustics, controlled atmosphere, and 100 attentive minds connected not only by sound, but by shared neural focus. Professor Zylan of the Tharvix Institute adjusted the holographic projection with a flick of his elongated digits. A glowing blue sphere hovered in the center of the room, rotating slowly. On its surface, countless data points shimmered. Today, Zylan began, his voice resonating through both air and mind link. We conclude our series on primitive species behavioral analysis. A murmur of intellectual anticipation rippled through the students. And our final subject, he continued, enlarging the sphere, is the species known as humans. The sphere zoomed in, revealing a small blue-green planet. Originating from a Class 4 death world, Zylan said, humans are biologically fragile, socially chaotic, and intellectually inconsistent. Yet, they persist. A student raised a tendril. Professor, is it true they engage in conflict even within their own species groups? Constantly, Zylan replied, internal division is a defining characteristic. Humans form tribes, nations, ideologies, then compete, often violently. The class hummed with fascination. However, Zylan added, their most curious trait is not their aggression. It is their storytelling. The projection shifted. Ancient cave paintings flickered into existence, followed by scrolls, books, and digital media. Humans construct narratives, fictional frameworks, to explain existence, morality, and fear. These stories often contradict observable reality, yet humans invest them with deep emotional significance. Another student leaned forward. Why would a rational species rely on falsehoods? Zylan's eyes glowed faintly. They do not consider them false. They consider them meaningful. The projection changed again, displaying creatures of myth, dragons, spirits, gods. These are examples of folklore, Zylan explained. Imaginary constructs used to embody fears, hopes, and lessons. Humans once believed such entities were real. Once, a student asked. Zylan paused. In many cases, they still do. The class erupted in mild amusement. How inefficient, one student remarked. On the contrary, Zylan said. Their myths influence behavior, cooperation, and survival. In some cases, belief itself alters outcomes. He gestured, and a new display appeared. A human soldier standing against impossible odds. Humans will fight beyond logical limits if they believe in a story, honor, duty, love, revenge. These are not quantifiable forces, yet they produce measurable results. A student tilted its head. So their weakness is also their strength. Zylan smiled faintly. Precisely. The lecture progressed, diving deeper into human contradictions. Their art, their wars, their resilience. Their tendency to fear the dark, and then explore it anyway. Now, Zylan said, nearing the conclusion, we examine a particularly amusing aspect of human folklore. The idea that they are not alone in the universe. The room dimmed slightly as the projection shifted to depict crude human drawings of alien beings. For centuries, Zylan continued, humans speculated about extraterrestrial life. They imagined beings observing them, abducting them, even teaching them. The students emitted soft pulses of amusement. How ironic, one said. They feared being studied, while we study them. Indeed, Zylan replied. A classic example of projection. He clasped his hands behind his back. In reality, humans remain technologically inferior. Their detection capabilities are limited, their space travel primitive. They are, for all practical purposes, unaware of our existence. He paused for emphasis. They are alone. The lecture hall doors opened. Not dramatically, not violently, just opened. At first, No one reacted. The Tharvix Institute operated with seamless precision. Doors opened all the time. But then the atmosphere shifted. The environmental system hesitated, recalibrating. The neural link flickered, and 3 figures stepped inside. They were smaller than the Tharvix. Compact, clad in unfamiliar suits, their faces partially obscured by transparent visors. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Xylan turned. His voice, for the first time in centuries, faltered. Impossible. The figures removed their helmets. Human faces. Calm, alert, observant. One of them, clearly the leader, stepped forward. Professor Xylan, she said, her voice transmitted through a small device. The translation system scrambled, then locked in. Yes, Xylan replied slowly. And you are? The human smiled. Dr. Elena Reyes, Xenocultural Specialist, United Earth Coalition. Silence crushed the room. Xylan stared at her. You are human. Yes. That is not possible. Dr. Reyes tilted her head slightly. Funny. We've been saying the same thing about you for the last 12 years. A ripple of shock moved through the students. Xylan regained some composure. How did you get here? He demanded. Carefully, Reyes said, and with a lot of trial and error. She glanced around the lecture hall. Nice setup, by the way. We've been listening in. Xylan's eyes widened. Listening? How? Reyes tapped her temple. You'd be surprised what you can do when you stop assuming something is impossible. Another human stepped forward. A man with a slightly amused expression. You left gaps, he said. Patterns in your observation systems. We noticed them. We thought they were natural anomalies, Reyes added. Turns out, they were you. The students began murmuring rapidly. Xylan raised a hand to silence them. This is a breach of protocol, he said. You are not authorized to be here. Reyes crossed her arms. Neither are you. The statement hung in the air. Xylan's mind raced. You are a pre-contact species, he said. We have strict non-interference policies. Reyes nodded. And yet, you've been observing us. Studying us. Building lectures about us. She gestured to the holographic display still hovering behind him. Without consent. Xylan hesitated. That is, standard procedure. Not where we come from, Reyes said. The male human chimed in again. You call us primitive, he said. But where we're from, studying a sentient species without their knowledge. That's unethical. Xylan felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. You are not advanced enough to notice. Reyes interrupted gently. We didn't at first. You're right about that. She stepped closer. But humans are good at one thing you underestimated. And that is, she smiled, curiosity. The room was completely still. We saw patterns in our skies, Reyes continued. Signals that didn't match natural phenomena. Objects that moved, wrong. We told ourselves stories, the other human added. Aliens, visitors, watchers. Xylan's earlier lecture echoed in his mind. They do not consider them false. They consider them meaningful. We didn't ignore those stories, Reyes said. We followed them. She gestured to the doorway behind her. And eventually, they led us here. A student raised a trembling tendril. Professor, does this mean their folklore was accurate? Xylan didn't answer. He couldn't. Reyes turned to the class. You've been studying us, she said. Mind if we return the favor? The students froze. Xylan found his voice. What do you want? Reyes considered the question. Understanding, she said. Same as you. She looked around the room. And maybe, a conversation. The tension shifted. Not gone, but transformed. Xylan straightened. You are proposing mutual study. Reyes nodded. Seems fair. He glanced at his students. At their wide, fascinated eyes. at the hologram of Earth still spinning quietly. "You have disrupted a controlled academic environment," he said. Reyes shrugged lightly. "Humans do that." A faint ripple of amusement passed through the room. Xylan exhaled slowly. "Very well," he said. "Let us proceed, differently." He gestured to the center of the hall. "Dr. Reyes, the floor is yours." The students leaned forward as Reyes stepped into the projection field. The hologram shifted, now displaying not just Earth, but human history in motion. "We tell stories," she began, "because reality is complicated, messy, sometimes terrifying." She looked at Xylan. "You see contradictions. We see possibilities." She walked slowly as she spoke. "You think our myths are irrational. But they're not meant to predict reality." She paused. "They're meant to prepare us for it." Images flashed. Wars, discoveries, disasters, triumphs. "When we imagined monsters," she said, "we learned to face fear. When we imagined heroes, we learned to become them." She turned to the class. "And when we imagined aliens," she smiled, "we got ready to meet you." The room was silent. Not with confusion, but with something deeper. Recognition. Xylan felt it settle into his mind. A realization he hadn't anticipated. He had studied humans as subjects, but never as equals. "Professor," one student whispered, "does this change our classification?" Xylan looked at the humans. At their calm confidence. Their impossible presence. "Yes," he said quietly. "It does." Reyes nodded slightly. "Good," she said, "because we've got a lot to learn from each other." The lecture hall lights brightened. Not as a signal of conclusion, but of beginning. And for the first time in Tharvik's Institute history, the lesson was no longer one-sided. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.